Hi everyone, this is John. Welcome to this Blitz chess postmortem, a postmortem of my Blitz game number 407. My opponent had the white pieces kicked off with e4, and we get into, after a few moves, I was expecting Ruy Lopez or an Italian game here, but he plays knight c3, or even the Scotch game, but knight c3 is fourth choice in the opening database, the four knights game. So you just bring out the other knight, and now d4, the Scotch four knights. Cancel that. d4 is the Scotch four knights, and that's what my opponent played. Bishop b5 is the Spanish four knights, sort of like a Ruy Lopez with these extra moves inserted. Bishop c4 is like an Italian game with these extra moves, although because of the extra moves you can play the center fork trick right away, so it's not considered such a great line. Not that it loses, it's about equal, I guess. So those are the two main replies: Bishop b5, the Spanish four knights, or d4, the Scotch four knights. So we get the Scotch four knights, and I'm not really familiar with this at all. I take the pawn, which is right, and then I played bishop to c5, playing it like a ordinary Scotch game. But it's a little bit different. What's different is there's these two extra pieces have been developed, and one knight here and one knight here. And because of that, there's an extra possibility of playing the bishop to b4 and pinning this knight, and that's just the better move in this case. You can see actually the chess engine thinks it equalizes almost immediately. So the way I played this was not accurate. I was just playing it sort of like a Scotch game and ignoring the extra knights there. So next time, bishop to b4, that's the way to go. Okay, so we get into a line familiar from the Scotch game, and I'm playing normal moves here. Knight takes. This is okay, b takes. And then, here we're pretty much out of the opening book at this point. I just wanted to point out that bishop takes here is just a mistake. It looks like the way to keep an edge in this position is to push on with e5 and kick my knight around a little bit. But this exchange helps black. It turns this rook pawn into the a pawn into a b pawn, and actually this pawn is a better pawn. If you think about it, the rook pawns only have half the power of any other pawn on the board, because other pawns can take to either side, so they control two squares, whereas the rook pawn only controls one square. So in a sense you've promoted this pawn, and also you've opened up the a file for the rook. So black is a little bit better in this position, but you know, it's not an overwhelming advantage, and this kind of game the advantage will go back and forth several times here. So my opponent plays bishop to d3, developing his bishop, defending his center pawn here. I just castle. I think we're doing okay for a while here. d6, let's get to the first of the interesting missed tactics. He plays, cancel that, h3, sorry. Plays h3, I go get my bishop out. Queen f3. He's sort of developing some sort of kingside initiative here with the queen. Queen d7 was not the most accurate move, I guess. Maybe a knight, maneuvering the knight around might be better, or a rook move, perhaps rook to e8. Okay, I mean it blocks the retreat of the bishop. It's not a bad move, it looks like, but just not the most accurate in the position here. And b5 and rook a to d1. I guess the queen maybe is a bit of a target here. There's potential attacks on this d pawn here with his e-pawn taking advantage of the pin. Nothing immediate, but something to watch out for. So I brought my f-rook all the way over to b8. I thought, cancel that. I thought it'd be interesting to try and expand on the queen side here. He plays e5, pushing forward, and now I go knight to d5. So that helps block up the d file, and so this pawn isn't so exposed here. And now he continues with queen to e4. Setting up a mating threat, or I guess it's not mating, but you generally don't want to give this pawn away and have your king chased around. So have to do something about that. And now he plays h4. So he is definitely going for the king side attack plan. But actually, h4 is a mistake. There's a tactic that black has in this position, and h4 is ignoring it. So here's your first chance to look for the tactic. What is well, imagine white plays h4. What is black's best move in that case? Okay, pause the video if you want time to think about it. I played, well, he played h4, and I just played b4, kicking the knight, and just opening up some lines here for my rooks, which is not a bad move, but it's better just to take the knight right away. If you take the knight, he has to take back with the pawn, and then the a pawn is just hanging. So that open a file is useful, and he's also left with these doubled c pawns, which are under threat, so strong advantage to black in that case. I missed that. I just pushed on with b4, and we're back in that same situation where I have some slight edge. I'm kicking his queen around here, but there is a tactic in this position. So once again, I'll ask you to imagine that I play the move rook takes b4, which I did play. What tactic does white have in that position? This one is a little trickier, so you definitely want to take some time to think about it. Go ahead and pause the video now. Okay, I'm giving the answer away. It's after rook takes, he can play knight takes knight, giving up his queen, but only temporarily, because what he's got is he's got this threat of the fork. And also, my rook is under attack, so I really have nothing better than to take his queen. My rook is loose there. So I take his queen, but then he wins my queen with this check. Let's say king goes here, knight takes. And in this position, my rook is hanging and his knight is hanging. So if I save my rook, it looks like that's the best move. Save my rook. Then he saves his knight. Knight back to f6. And we stop and count. Yeah, he's a piece up. He's won a piece on that transaction. So a little bit complicated, but that's the kind of thing you can spot. If we look at this, if you're the white player here, you might consider, instead of immediately reacting to the threat to your queen, you might consider a move like knight takes d5 with the idea of going to f6. You have to be able to see like 2 moves ahead that here, here, and here is a good plan. But that's a kind of tactic you can spot if you work at it. Okay, he played queen to f3, just running away from the rook. And I take the pawn, and he comes in here with knight e4, and I go rook f4. And once again, he can take advantage of this tactic, the same idea, by just grabbing my rook with the queen and then playing his knight there with check. He moved his queen out of the way, and I chased the queen a bit. And I couldn't quite decide what to do here. I maneuver my pieces around. He played bishop back to e2. And here, apparently it's good just to go ahead and grab the pawn, which my previous move had set up. Right now I can't take the pawn back because there's this potential pin here, and he's got the pawn coming to c5, c4 to kick my knight. So it's a problem. But when I get my queen off of the d file, and he plays some other move like bishop e2, then I can just take the pawn here, and I probably should, and I'll be in a good shape in that position. Instead, I decide I don't like my rook being chased around here, and I give up the exchange. So it's interesting that after a couple of moves, at first looks like white is a little bit better here after I give up the exchange. But after a few moves, I guess maybe he's not playing the most accurate moves. He went bishop f5. I went bishop f5, kicking his queen. Okay, and queen c4 is the move to play here. He went queen f3. So after this move, then actually I have compensation for the exchange at this point. I grab the pawn. And, well, let's see. It's this kind of a long game. I'll go forward. There's just a lot of maneuvering here, some exchanges. And I keep a slight edge even though I'm the exchange down. I just miss some opportunities along the way to take full advantage of it. And right here, yeah, so right here I was still, yeah, I need to save my pawns. I mean, I have the pawns as compensation for the exchange, so I really should be saving the c-pawn rather than just giving it up so easily. I was thinking about the immediate threat here, but the problem is when he takes the pawn, he defends against the threat that I was making. So so that was giving up a pawn for no reason. And now after that, it's now about even once again. So I play a few checks. I had some idea that there might be some combinations with the queen and the knight, but it doesn't appear to be anything great there. And now he gets a slight edge right here. Right here, it's another chance for me to take off his rook and pull this rook away from the back rank and then come in with my queen. I didn't play this because well, I thought about this a little bit. I saw that he could take back with check, and that forces me to waste a move. And now he has time to get back and defend. Is there a problem with just rook back to b1? Queen to h5. Threatening to come in here and win the rook. And now queen to h3. Oh, I see. The queen here is not possible. Cancel that. You'd like to move the queen back to b5 here to protect the rook, because the check here is threatening to win the rook. It's also threatening mate. Okay, so queen h3, yeah, scratch that. Queen h3 is the only move here, because the knight is covering the escape square of the king. That's the kind of tactic you have to watch out for, the back rank and the knight covering the escape square. So he has to play queen h3 here, and that's why it's a good move. Okay, so yeah, so I thought about this a little bit, but didn't think through it deeply enough. If you get just to this point and you see, well, the king's going to have to move and he has time to defend, what you don't realize, you have to look at a couple moves deeper to realize that even his best moves don't defend all that well. He has to be pretty careful. So after rook b1, queen h5, queen h3. I wonder what is best for me here. Queen e2 check, king g1, and queen takes c2, picking up another pawn. Okay, the best way to play it. I played knight e6 here, and holding on to my pawn for the moment. And so it's about even. Once again, he exchanges and attacks my king. And I think the game stays about even. Oh, one more tactic here I missed. Queen to d5. Yeah, this is a nice tactic too. Queen to d5, ignoring the threat to my knight and threatening this check here. So after queen to d5, let's see, he can take the knight. Can't he just move his king out of away from the checks? Can't go there. I guess if he goes there, oh, queen g2 is mate. Okay, so moving the king, I just wanted to cover this square so that there wasn't this, you know, the idea is the queen comes in here and wins the rook. So I was trying to cover the h1 square there. So what else could white try? White can't defend the rook once again. Yeah, it looks like taking the knight is the only move here. Okay, so that's a little bit tricky to see that white really has no defense here other than taking the knight. I mean, the other problem is the knight here and the queen here once again is threatening mate because the knight is guarding the escape squares. So really the only moves that are thinkable here are king moves. So that one didn't work, so it was king e1 is the only other way to play it. And then queen h1 check happens anyway. Okay, so that wins the exchange, queen d5. Kind of a clever tactic. Okay, so I drop my knight back, and the problem along here is my opponent is just low on time, so we never get too far from even, and he just ran out of time right at this point. So interesting game with some missed tactics there. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Leave any comments you have in the section below, and I will see you again soon. Bye.